Up+Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up+Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up+Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
All right, happy Tuesday. That feels like Monday. It is Tuesday. Feels like Monday. Thank you so much for being Up+Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. A busy, just jam-packed Labor Day weekend. We had family in town. Felt great. Lady I Fancy's sister and husband were here, and it's just fun. It's been a minute since, there's always things going on during the weekend, but a lot going on. Hitting up all the different spots. The sun definitely reminded you that it was in charge this weekend. Hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. Hope you got a chance to maybe swim a little bit. That was definitely crucial. Also, quick note about something you didn't hear this weekend. I talked about it on Friday's show. I had an incredible interview lined up with Adam Lockwood, aka Nuisance, the legendary free climber who's made headlines for doing things that honestly make your palms sweat just thinking about. And he has some big things happening that we are on the tip of. Now, the interview is done. It's recorded. I even had some amazing video lined up. But turns out, this is all good stuff, but it turned out some kind of developments happened over the weekend. In time, this will all make sense. But there's a bigger picture here. Let's just say some exciting, really exciting opportunities, and Up+Adam might play a small part in something a lot larger, dare I say not even national, but international down the line. So in the spirit of doing things the right way and supporting the other great work that's already in motion behind the scenes, I'm trying to be very delicate in what I say. I need to hold that episode for just a bit, maybe a week or so. Some of it will drop soon, some later, and eventually all of it it'll all make perfect sense what's going on. Then I can tell you what's actually happening. But this is actually kind of cool, what's going on behind the scenes. And I was really excited that this conversation, how do I put this? The conversation that we had definitely plays into some themes and topics that are really blowing up right now for Adam and others. So taking this beat makes sense for all parties involved, and it's actually going to come out, it's going to be better for it. So when these types of things happen, and they don't often, but when they do, I definitely want to beg your indulgence and your appreciation, because, I was stoked to unleash what I have. And I was going to fire it off on Friday. And then, we're a little behind where they are in some of the other parts of Western Europe. And that's where I'm talking to a lot of these people. So it just kind of had a little snag. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I not posting this at all this weekend? So there was definitely some things, but it's all for a greater good, not just for the bigger picture at hand, but definitely for us too, here at Up+Adam and even you. So I appreciate your patience and the indulgence. And I totally said, yeah, the Adam Lockwood interview, it's going to be Labor Day weekend. And then I didn't put it out, but a very good reason why. And there is enough of the reason that I'm able to tell you right now. So, all right. Now for today's show, you ever been lied to so thoroughly that you start to doubt your own reality? That's the space Andrea Gunning lives in and broadcasts from every week. She's the voice behind Betrayal Weekly. It's a gripping first-person docuseries where trust just isn't broken. It's straight demolished. From stories of fake cancer scams to long-running double lives, Andrea dives into the human wreckage left behind when the people that we thought we knew turn out to be totally strangers, totally different. What makes Andrea's show so different, it's not about the crime, it's about the crack that came before it. the moment you realize something's off, the silence that screams louder than the truth. And today, she's bringing those stories and that weight of what she's learned right here. So stick around. Coming up later on a True Crime Tuesday, Andrea joins me to talk about the wildest lies she's uncovered, what betrayal does to your brain, and why telling your story might be the most healing thing you'll ever do. You definitely don't want to miss this chat. Andrea Gunning. She won Best Crime Podcast. This gal is serious stuff. To have her on a True Crime Tuesday, I am stoked. All right, have you seen this story? This is wild. The CEO of a Polish paving company became an international villain this weekend. He was caught on camera stealing a hat from a little kid at the U.S. Open. Piotr Cezrek, whose name kind of sounds like a Bond villain, doesn't it? He grabbed the hat that tennis star Kamil Matrzak was trying to hand a young boy, and the guy took off with it. He took it right out of the boy's hand. You see this little boy with just like this, looks up and goes, what? He's been called every name in the book over the course of the long weekend as this has gone viral. But he would like you to know that he has just made, quote, a serious mistake. He says, quote, I would like to unequivocally apologize to the boy who was harmed, his family, as well as all the fans and the player himself. In the emotions, in the crowd's joy after the victory, I was convinced that the tennis player was handing the cap in my direction for my sons, who had earlier asked for autographs. He continues on, it is a painful but necessary lesson in humility for me. He also promised to, quote, engage even more actively in initiatives supporting children and youth, as well as in actions against violence and hate. I believe that only through deeds can I rebuild the lost trust. Now, Matrzak, I hope I'm saying his name right, the tennis player, he didn't even notice what happened because he was tired. He just kind of won. He was kind of in a daze after the match. But when he heard about it, he actually arranged to meet the kid in person on Saturday. And he gave him a bunch of swag. How cool is that? And for the record, he believes Piotr's story, the CEO. Piotr even sponsors his tennis federation back in Poland. So this is seemingly like it's being ironed out. There was a previous statement from the CEO in which he expressed zero remorse and even kind of insulted the kid for not being quicker. I was like, is this real? Turns out it was completely fake. It was kind of brilliant, though. And it had a lot of people fooled because it tapped into that growing intolerance for the rich and their excuses and just, so it did kind of read true. It was not. It was totally untrue. All right. Before we jump into our chat with Andrea Gunning, let's talk about our friends at Life Elements. I love Martha and Kurt. Hidden in the back corner of a plaza in Atascadero is a woman literally practicing wellness alchemy. Life Elements is where you can walk in, see things being made in real time, leave with a little something Martha maybe just whipped up, a lotion, a stick, even a bug spray you didn't know you needed. Everything is small batch, cruelty-free, and made with real healing in mind. It's no wonder why their CBD relief stick is a bestseller across the country. Their natural deodorant is going gangbusters right now. In addition to their spot in Atascadero, you can shop their products at the Hive in Arroyo Grande, the General Store, downtown Paso, and of course, lifeelements.com. When you're on the website, lifeelements.com, use the promo code ADAM. Save 15%. Support local and let your wellness meet its maker. Lifeelements.com. I encourage you to go into the shop too. Check them out, see them, visit them, meet them. 7425 El Camino Real, Suite O, back right corner of the plaza. You can't miss it. Life Elements.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, she's the voice guiding us through stories so wild, you'd swear they were fiction, but they are not. Andrea Gunning is the host of Betrayal Weekly, a powerful true crime docuseries where trust isn't just lost, it is ripped apart. And here's a twist. These aren't stories about murder. These are stories about the people we let in, the people we loved, the people we thought we knew. Andrea's work on confronting O.J. Simpson, Columbine, and Dating Diaries has earned national acclaim. She's won Best Crime Podcast. She's now out front leading with empathy, edge, and a real voice that'll keep you in the car long after you've parked. I've been looking forward to this. Let's welcome Andrea Gunning. Up and Adam. Is it Andrea? Andrea?
It's Andrea. Thank you for asking.
Of course.
Yeah,
No,
it's
you gotta get
Andrea.
that right. It's such a cool name, and I've seen people who do it both. And it's like, you got to get it right, though. You got to get it right.
I know. I'm a twin, so between my name being Andrea, like people getting that wrong, and people thinking that I'm Francesca, people call me the right name. Maybe
You
a
got no
fraction of the
identity.
time.
It's like you're not even you. Come on now. We at least got to, Thor or Bone, guys. Come on. Most true crime shows are about kind of what happened. Betrayal Weekly, though, it's about what people hid. And there's a real difference there. What's the most outrageous lie, Andrea, that someone almost got away with that you covered, maybe one where even you had to take a beat? And do you find yourself wanting to ask the person, like, how long did you think you were going to ride this out for?
Ooh, there is. I love that. I love that question. There is a story we have in season 2 of Betrayal Weekly. It's about a woman named Angela. She lost her daughter, Joanna, to cancer. And in her legacy, she wanted to create a foundation that supported people that were going through cancer with holistic treatments, meditation, just something that would basically survive her daughter's legacy. And her best friend helped her run this foundation. And after 2020, the foundation wasn't doing well. They were going to shutter. And her best friend was like the executive director and was like, I think we have to close our doors. We don't have enough money. And so if she just took that at face value, the organization would have, shuttered and they would have went on their merry way. But it turns out that she was actually embezzling money. And so, it could have gone a different way. She may have never known, and, they asked questions. They were able to raise funds, keep the foundation open. And then all of this betrayal was uncovered. So that was pretty wild. I mean, if they just would have just accepted that they didn't have any money and they had to close, it would have never been unearthed.
Wow, that's crazy. Trust is a drug. Trust is the one thing you never notice until it's gone. And once it breaks, it's like you can't unsee it. In the stories you've covered, what's the moment where the person knew, not suspected, but just knew that everything was a lie?
We talk about that moment often because that's the pivotal moment, like that D-Day, that moment where everything about your reality becomes just a matter of perception.
And,
right?
And is it quiet? Is it loud? Does it hit like a car? Does it hit like a whisper?
It's different for everybody. I think in the Betrayal Weekly, there's such a diversity of story. And that moment when everything shifts is really specific to each story. But I think one of the most profound moments was in season 4 of the limited run. So the weekly, we release episodes every Thursday. Each week is a different story of first-person account of deception and betrayal. And then we also have this limited run series where it's one person's story told over 8 to 10 weeks. And season 4 is about this woman named Caroline. She was married to this cop, very well respected in his community. And one day someone knocks on her door, and that kind of sparks a sequence of events where he was ultimately fired from his job. And he comes home and puts his ring on, the table, and her whole life changes in that instant. And so we really focus the first 2 episodes on those moments, on that moment where everything changes. And she realizes her reality was just a matter of her perception of her husband and her life, because he was living a completely other life for as long as they were married, essentially.
Damn. It's crazy. This podcast isn't all like about crimes per se. It's about people, and people are inherently messy. They're sneaky. They're emotional. They're beautiful wrecks, right? So it's hosting Betrayal Weekly. Has it changed the way that you look at some of the people in your own life, like who you trust, how fast, and with what?
Yeah, I mean, I got engaged this year, and I would say thank you, my fiance, bless his heart, is definitely, he knows that sometimes I bring my work home with him. He's like, you're bringing a little bit of betrayal to the table here. I'm like, fair enough. But even with my girlfriends, right? Like, I have some best friends of mine that are still dating. They aren't married. And I'm I am that person that's on like criminal dockets and on LexisNexis, like looking at what their background is because I can't help myself. I need to know that they seem like safe people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you, Adam. That's what I do. Like if you're friends with me, I'm looking up your new boyfriend that you
Right.
met on Hinge very thoroughly.
That's so funny. What's the crazy
Yeah.
part? So many of these stories follow the same beats. And I'll tell you why I thought of this in a second, because there was a
Okay.
podcast that got born from this area, and I'll tell you in a second. But charm, secrets, the slow unravel. It's like con artists take the same masterclass. If you had to build a betrayal starter pack, what's always in the kit? What are the red flags that show up in every single time?
Okay. So, yes, these are stories of betrayal and deception. But as a team, when we're talking about a story that we're going to do, that betrayal, that deception story doesn't exist without a love story. Whether it's not a love story between a husband and wife or best friends, like the story I told you about this woman, Angela,
Yeah.
and the foundation she was running, or a love for the business that you have and respect for your business partner. There are no stakes without that love story. People can't really understand the devastation of betrayal and deception if you don't understand what that situation or that person, that life meant to you. So that love story has to be in the starter kit, period. And so sometimes it's actually hard to write these stories because very often, and something that we feel very strongly about at Betrayal, is that there usually are no red flags because, there are things here and there. And, we'll say, oh, this is interesting. But oftentimes people are not seeing, or there are no red flags, because these perpetrators are very good at what they do, number one. And number two, there's a thing called betrayal blindness, right? Where you are just not seeing whether or not there are red flags that exist. We're not seeing them because for us to, so often we defer to truth. We trust people. It's the backbone of our society. So for me to assume that my husband's living a double life, it's just like, you're not even going there. You're not going down that line of thinking,
Yeah.
right? Because you're just assuming he's this person that you've known. There's a ton of evidence to trust him. You're just not going down that path. So, that's sometimes like the hardest part of our show is like, how do you breadcrumb something for that suspense? Because there are oftentimes no red flags.
Yeah, oh, it's such a trip. So the reason I brought that question up was because out of here, and we're just like in, San Luis Obispo, Paso wine country, Pismo Beach, really nice part of the central coast of California. And we started seeing some stuff on Instagram here of this, like what they call the Rachel cancer scam. And it's now a podcast, and I've interviewed the guy here a couple times, so if you wanted to connect, great. But and I verified, and what drew me into this one was like executive produced by Billy Bush. And I'm like, really? So I reached out to Billy Bush on Insta.
Yeah.
And sure shit, Billy Bush gets back to me, blue check marks, like, yeah, no, it's a crazy story. Da-da-da. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this guy, I'm going to interview him. I've had him on a couple times now. Wow. And I've and it's because it's here. It's like I know some of the people who work with this woman, and I've checked the stories. Check out. This is crazy. She faked cancer. She faked being an attorney or being a this. I mean, it's like the most elaborate, crazy lies. This bitch, and it's just wild. And I'm like, oh my god, this literally. And then I go, well, you're a jilted lover for sure, yeah. But I get where you're coming from. But like, how you wonder how sometimes how you guys how this happened to you.
I know. There are interviews, and we had one yesterday that me and my producer got off of, and we literally just sat in silence and shook our head. I had to go out for a walk afterwards because it's just the thing that just kept going over in my head was, this is just so unfair. I mean, a scenario like you just talked about in that story, you could never predict how someone that destructive could just literally happen to walk into your life.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of just crossing paths with someone like that. And so that sometimes is what's the hardest part about it is, wow, how unfair.
Yeah.
How unfair.
One of the hardest parts about betrayal is that it doesn't just take away trust, but it takes away the version of your life that you thought was true. What do you think is harder for people to even recover from, Andrea? Is it the actual betrayal or the feeling that like, shit, I was the last one to know?
That is at the core of the work that I do. What you just said is the impact of the realization that your life is not what it seems. And, oftentimes we talk about how perception is my reality. What was good about my life? Because sometimes when you have to like make peace with what happened to you, and if it's really destructive and horrible, you kind of have to destroy it and like forget it, right? So if your husband was, you thought that he was at work, but really, and we're at a lacrosse game supporting our kids, and you're like, he's not here because he has to work, but really he's off having an affair. These moments, these memories can be tainted in really, really interesting ways that you would never, realize. And so to taint your lived experience, like if you're with someone for 20 years that betrayed you, you're supposed to just forget those 20 years and literally discard core moments with your kids, like birthday parties, holidays. It's just not possible. So we often talk about how perception is your reality. What I had was very genuine. What I experienced was genuine, and I'm going to take that with me.
Yeah. You've probably heard stories from people that their own families don't even know. And that's a wild kind of access. What's something maybe, can you think of someone where something maybe told you off mic, on mic, I don't know, but still lives rent free in your head? And not because, maybe because it was juicy, but just because it was so human.
That's such a deep question. And we have a show that's coming out on Hulu. It comes out on September 2nd, and
Nice.
it's about our story, our limited run story from season 3, Stacey and Tyler. And it's about a doctor. Stacey married, this is her second marriage. She married this doctor, Justin Rutherford. She had 2 kids from her previous marriage, and they loved him. They were so happy their mom found love. And it turns out that he was abusing her son, and he was going to take that information to his grave. He was never going to disclose what happened to him. A sequence of events happened where ultimately this all came out and he had to disclose. And so for me, what lives rent free is his internal strength, that he was never going to risk what this person meant to his mom, what this person meant to his other siblings. And he was just going to live with what happened because he loved them so much. It's like us as humans, we are capable of destruction, but we have such capacity for love. And so it was really Tyler, his capacity for love for his mom and his siblings and the life that they wanted. He was going to endure whatever. And so that was really what was astonishing to me. That often lives rent free for me. And you can see that whole story unfold over 3 episodes on Hulu starting September 2nd. And I'm really excited for people to see their story on screen.
Yeah, that's so cool. Congrats on the Hulu thing. That's great.
Thank you.
I gotta hand it to you. The way you present these stories, and I really like your voice, but the way you present these stories is really good. Someone could be listening to like an episode or 2, and all of a sudden they're questioning, like, why did my partner go to Austin on that work trip? I mean, like, do you hear from listeners who are like, your show messed me up in the best way? Like, shake, or it could really shake loose something that maybe a person was ignoring that maybe shouldn't have been. I don't know.
I remember my cousin's husband texting me one time being like, do I even know? Gab is her name. He's like, do I even know her? And I'm like, relax, you're fine. But yeah, it happens all the time for sure.
For a long time, true crime was really all about like body count, right? But your show proves something a lot deeper. That betrayal cuts just as deep, and sometimes it bleeds longer. Why do you think betrayal hits us harder than violence even? And what does being lied to you, why does it feel like such a personal attack?
To the point that we were talking about earlier about trust and it being the foundation of society and how we function in the world with, as people, as humans, we need people. We need a community. And so, and trust is at the center of that human experience with other people. And so when there's a violation of that, it feels so intimate and it really hits at the core of your lived experience. So I think that that's why it resonates so much. I really do.
Yeah. We'll talk about kind of what ends up on the cutting room floor of episodes like this. You're putting the stories together, and I'm always a real fan of the process of it, the editing, and what you end up going, God, that was really good, but maybe just not for this one. I don't know.
You know, I'll think about that question, but I think one of the biggest struggles when we're talking to individuals, because they're well past the experience to the point where they can share it with a stranger or a producer. Some of the hardest parts about them retelling their story is going back to that love story, like going back and unearthing the feelings, the raw emotions, the love that they had for these individuals. Because what often comes up is a lot of anger and frustration, and it's easier to talk about the deception and the betrayal than it is the love you had for someone that deeply hurt you. So it's like that finesse and that delicate dance of like, having them go back to a moment where they can access, because honestly, that's the most painful.
Yeah.
Because to go there, that is like the most raw and emotion of like, oh my God, yeah. That's where that hurts the most, is to be reminded of that love and that connection. And so if something's going to hit the cutting room floor is when we really need the audience to know the stakes. And so I always say I don't love producing from a place of anger. I like producing from a place of authenticity. And so maybe that answers your question. Like
Does.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
thoughtful. Thanks for fielding that. I'm curious, you must have, over the time, been able to pick up tells, things you've seen with interviews, something small that may go, they're not really being totally straight with us. Do you trust your gut more now, or has this show almost made you like second guess it?
I would say, people are really good at lying. So I've cut myself some slack. Obviously, of like not beating myself up over not telling, but I do feel like I've got a good intuition. I mean, we interview so many people and they'll start the interview being like, I consider myself a good judge of character. I mean, I did we were in the field in Maryland and, usually, I want to say like every interview I had one day, someone started out, I'm usually a really good judge of character. I think that about myself. And I'm like, we could all say that about ourselves, right? Like we really all could. And so I've kind of I've stopped myself from saying it, because the reality is if someone wants to, there are people that are just that good. But I'd like to think I have decent intuition.
Yeah.
Adam, I would. Yeah, say that.
It's like we've gotten numb to murder, but betrayal, it's just so personal. It's some of these things, it didn't even have to be criminal, but it could be so personal that it almost feels like unforgivable, I mean, whether it's emotional, financial, romantic, it hits harder than a lot of violent crimes sometimes, doesn't it?
I know, and I really don't love the fact that we are becoming desensitized to violent crime.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, like, they've came out with the redacted body cam footage from the Idaho murders recently. And I watched some of it because I wanted to see the statements from the surviving roommates and like how they were in the wake of an extremely traumatic event and what that was doing to their body and neurologically. I really wanted to understand it and really observe the human experience in that. And, you just hear their fear and their devastation. And I was like, this is what people forget, is about these kids that are sitting on the street after something horrible happened inside their home. And I just needed to witness, like, that was an experience of someone that was so profound, so horrible that, like, if I'm going to watch this documentary on Prime, I want to sit with them in that darkest moment and not have it completely sterilized on a documentary. Like, I felt an obligation to do that because we shouldn't be numb to violent crime.
So
and, it's just how I feel. And so, I think betrayal is a new space, and I think because it's a lot more pervasive because it does happen between relationships and whatever, and there's so many variations of relationship dynamics where it can happen. I think it feels a little bit more accessible, but I refuse to feel numb to either.
In so many of these stories, I love how you put that. The victims don't just survive, they shine. They fight back, they rebuild. So I really think it's kind of a cool finish. And I don't know if you think telling the story is part of the healing, maybe the final step of it.
I mean, we know just from like neuroscience that by sharing your story, telling your story, you are activating the amygdala in reorienting yourself through that trauma. And so by telling your story, you are physically digesting it in a different way that is profound and healing. And so we end all of our weekly episodes with the question, why do you want to share your story? And so often people want to share to either educate people about what they went through and like, whether it's a scam on the elderly, or they just want to say, this happened to me. I think for people to share and have people bear witness to the pain that you felt, you don't feel like it was in vain, that you're giving back. And that can be so healing.
I love it. What a great conversation. First of all, I want my ChatGPT to be your voice. I think it's awesome. And I want to catch up with you again. And I hope I get a chance that we can promote that Hulu show. But I'd love to chat with you again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. I loved our conversation.
Also, that Rachel Cantor scam might be a fun one for you to kind of dig into a little bit.
I know. I'm like at this point where I'm like,
you're just like
in my free time, I need to watch like Parks and Rec or something, like something that's just not deception and horribleness.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for being Up and Adam. We'll chat again.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Some say life's where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Andrea, thank you so much, so much for being Up and Adam. You can catch Andrea's story from season 3, Stacey and Tyler, coming to Hulu starting literally today. Yes, September 2nd. That's going to be powerful. All the links in the show notes, including her socials, the show page, and everything else you need to dive deeper. Andrea, let's do this again sometime. I would love that. All right, gearing up for the Central Coast Writers Conference. It is back, 41st annual, and this year, so am I. I'll be leading a brand new workshop called The Art of the Interview. The Writers Conference goes September 26th and September 27th at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo. Whether you're a writer, podcaster, journalist, or just someone who wants to ask better questions and learn more about your passion about writing, the Central Coast Writers Conference is definitely for you. This session that I'm doing a workshop for, it's hard to say I'm teaching, I'm leading. I guess you could say I'm leading it. I'll show you how to build trust, spark connection, turn any conversation into something really unforgettable. And that's just one piece of it. The Writers Conference is stacked, from best-selling authors to screenwriters, editors, poets, publishers. It's 2 full days of workshops, live readings, feedback sessions, creative energy you just don't want to miss out on. Check it out. Go to cuesta.edu/writersconference or just Google Central Coast Writers Conference. It'll come right up. And let's level up together. What do you say? All right, short week. This week's going to go by quick. Cooling down a little bit. Thank goodness. Temps in the mid-70s. San Luis Obispo, mid-80s. North County, places like Templeton, Paso. Thank goodness it was a warm one. Even in SLO, right up there on some of those days, was right up there with the North County. Cooking. All right, before we get out of here, let's thank our friends Moonshiner Collective for original music on the show. Start Again, who had an incredible performance. Ginny texted me a really cool video of Moonshiner Collective playing at the Cliffs. Looked like the place to be yesterday, for sure. Check them out, moonshinercollective.com. Stream them wherever you get your music. Also, our friends at Tamber Winery, the village of Arroyo Grande, is where you'll taste their world-class wines. Tamber, spelled Timbre. Tamberwinery.com, and I thank them for our Lowbro studios at Tamber. Most importantly, I thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing to the show, supporting wherever you're listening to it, sharing it with a friend, letting folks know what we're up to in this community. It means a ton. So thank you. Till tomorrow, I'm Adam Montiel. Back at it. Enjoy the beginning of your short week and hopefully the beginning of a great day for you. Till we connect again, thank you so much for being Up and Adam.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again. Let's start again. We'll start again. Let's start again.